So, what we're looking at here, you may have seen this video before, but what I'm going to do is an audio talk through. I could only put so much text onto the video which I put together, so the video itself needs a fuller explanation. So this is what this recording's all about, so I hope you enjoy it and you can see the symbology or the symbolism that are on these Pictish stones. I ask you to carefully consider the words and the things that I'm saying and showing. I have been looking at these things for 40 years, 40 odd years, since I was 10, and it's only now at 52-year-old that I, after a long journey through religions and various spiritual paths, that I have came to the knowledge of where the gate of heaven is and how it was here all along. And there are people who say that it's not a physical place, but I beg to differ, and so did our ancestors. And it's a sad day, really, that most people believe that it isn't a physical place, that there isn't a physical entrance to another realm and another world, and that there isn't a place where creation began, because they have turned people against the words of the Bible and the religious movements, and in doing so they've robbed themselves of the fruit of the tree. So I hope to put these videos together, and I'm pushing as much as I can to explain them to people, as I've been doing my research over the last 30 odd years, 40 years. Now, we seem to be getting interference again, so what I'm going to do is unplug my speakers and pause, and we'll continue in a few moments. Yeah, the speakers seem to be playing up me, so I need to get a new set of speakers. I just got a new PC, but I need a new set of speakers now. Either that, the spirits are playing games with me, the Furies are furious, or the Firies, the Finnies, the Tuath Danan. Anyway, you know what I mean if you've been watching my other posts or watching my other videos. But what we're going to look at is the Pictish standing stones, and what the Pictish and the Gaelic and the Gals and the Picts left for us is very important. They've made the Pictish people a mystery people, and those who are scholars and those who are following the Pictish trail from the universities, and who are being funded, of course, those who are writing books, and those who are just lazy and not doing the research, they're missing out on the truth, or not revealing the truth to the people. And I'm trying to reveal the truth. The Pictish people are the ancestors of the cradle of civilization, and the things that they carved, and the large monoliths that were replicated all over the world, but they built here in the British Isles, tell us exactly where the centre of heaven is and where Eden is, and it's certainly not in the Middle East or the Far East or the Near East, but it is here at the North Celestial Pole. And I'm going to go through this video that I made earlier on because it's quite good. It shows descriptions of the formation of creation, and it also shows a catastrophe. But before I go on and continue looking at that, what I want to do is quote from you, or read for you, from a book by Andis Kaulins, and that's Andis Kaulins, Andis Kaulins, Andis Kaulins. The surname is Kaulins, and it's J.D. Stanford University Press, Trafford Publishing, and the book's called Stars, Stones and Scholars, the Decipherment of the Megaliths. There is an ISBN number there, and the ISBN number is 141, so it's ISBN 141201344 /5, and it's Stars and Stones, the Scholars, the Decipherment of the Megaliths by Andis Kaulins, and I believe he's an American. He's a lawyer, so yes, very, very interesting. He is trained at Harvard University or Stanford University, Stanford, and I'm going to quote from his book. And in his book, Stars, Stones and Scholars, he's actually having a dig, as we would say in Scotland. He's having a go at the scholars and how that it's so obvious that these standing stones throughout the world are all pointing to the North Celestial Pole, and that most of the scholars miss or conveniently do not recognise that most of the stones are shapes and figures of beings, creatures, animals, men, women, and anybody who speaks about these things are seen as pseudo-scientists, pseudo-scholars, and the scholars scoff at them. So, but he writes this fantastic book called Stars, Stones and Scholars, and it's a book which I have just received in the last month and a half, so it adds so much to much of my work. But I have actually came across Andis Kaulins' website when it was up and running. I don't think it is now, but when it was up and running, I managed to download some maps of the Neolithic sites in Scotland, and I'll put images of this in here so that we know what we're talking about. But and this will overlay this image, and I can zoom back and forward to the stones when need be. So the map, the Neolithic sites in Scotland near Aberdeen represents Cephas and the neighbouring stars. So according to the Neolithic, Bronze Age and Iron Age mapping of the standing stones within the Aberdeen area, to the Don side and the upper Don side area, round about a place called Old Keg, round Glassell, down in Buchan, and then up at Brownend of Cricky and Easter of Quarters, and then Lonehead of Daviot, and all this sort of area, Loudon Wood, which is near Peterhead. This area was the Circle of Heaven, and he says here in his book in page 43, page 42 contains this map, which I'll have on now, and you can see the circle on the map running through Cephas, and that is the pole star. It says down the bottom there, Ursa Minor. So you have Ursa Minor and you have a circle, and that is the Circle of Heaven, the core. The Gaelic word for circle is core. So that's the core, the wheel, which is one of the wheels within wheels that Ezekiel speaks of, and I'll get into a teaching or a discussion and a bit of a revelation about Ezekiel's wheels, because they can also be transposed up into the heavens and shown by the stories that are in the heavens and the mythologies that were handed down by the peoples who lived in these upper parts of the northern hemisphere. So in page 42 we have this map. On page 43 I will just read as he has printed in his book, and this is a copyright book, but the information is very important, and I'm sure the type of man that he is, he wouldn't mind his information being shared. I have shared his name and the ISB number. I would suggest buy the book. It's paramount in understanding or understanding anything to do with the heavens, standing stones, pictish stones, stone circles, ley lines, and any of these things all over the world, and it is fantastic. Page 43, Cephas, landmarked by stone sites near Aberdeen. Cephas, landmarked on earth as stone sites near Aberdeen. The ancient astronomers were Cephans. So C-E-P-H-E-A-N-S. The ancient astronomers were Cephans, who made Cephas the father of their royal family of stars. Cephas in Sumerian temple hymns is translated as E-C Abzu, the shrine which is the Abzu. In Latvian, Abzu, the go-around. And this is me putting this in here like a merry-go-round. And this is where we get the idea of the merry-go-round and the horses and so on. So, but carry on from his book. That was my input. And in the pharaonic Egypt, Cephas was also known as Cheops. So the Pyramid of Giza, this is my input, was Cheops. So the tip of Cephas marks the circle of precession and was intentionally so designed by the ancient sky surveyors. So the ancient sky surveyors were Cephans. Cephas is landmarked by the Neolithic sites in Aberdeenshire. The following sites from the shape of the stars of Cephas make up the House of Cephas. Most site names have ancient comparable star names, such as Old Keg, Midmar Kirk, Alfirk, Sun Honey, Sonas, Cullery, Tyabaga, Derab, Easter Aquatis, Aquarus, Esley, Aesid. And I'll just interject here that the word Esley is one of the families that Leslie, where we get the word ley line from. So Aesids, which is a star system, and Broom End of Cricky. The Broom End, meaning the sweeping of the procession, of course. The stone circle at Old Keg has the largest recumbent stone in all of Scotland, brought from over 10 kilometres away, and requiring at least 100 men to move it. So the ancients had a reason for putting the stone where it is found. So I think he's having a go at some of the scholars who don't think of these things. But anyway, stone circles were not just local sundials. It seems to be he's having a go at what the normal narrative is. Yeah, I'd like to meet this guy. But anyway, he goes on to say, large fires were burned at the site at Old Keg, and Cephas is known as the fire kindler. Remember here, the Cephans were the ones who marked the stars. So, the fire kindler, the fire at the bowl of heaven. Yeah. So, Old Keg may appear in the ancient Sumerian temple hymns, and it is transcribed as the similar El Du Kug, which in Mesopotamian is Kala Gilta, Delta Draconis. Of course, Draconis sits right next to the House of Cephas, and we have Draconis in some of these standing stones here. It was further back, of course, for Draconis. We have Draconis right here, the Draco. And you can see this symbol. I'm going to go on to show what this lightning bolt actually represents and how it shows the history of our catastrophe and cutting off from the land and then returning to the land. And but right now we're looking at the centre of heaven, and we're looking at Cephas, the House of Cephas. And the House of Cephas, we're looking back onto this Tiamat. This is Hydra, and this is Apsu. So I'm speaking here about Cephas' land marked by Neolithic sites in Aberdeenshire. The following take the form of the House of Cephas. So Cephas is over here, in this area. It's not actually shown here. This down here is the Cetus, C-E-T-U-S. And this is further down in the Lothian sort of areas, the Leviathan area. But what this is shown is the centre of heaven, and this is the Polaris, and the two dragons that circle around, this one being Hydra and this one being the Apsu. And what I'm reading from his book just now about the Greater Esley, Midmar Kirk, Sun Honey, and the stone circle at Old Keg, being the largest one, and stones being carried 10 kilometres away. The reason why is because this is the centre of heaven, and this is what he's saying in the book. So the Greater Esley, marking the larger path, is the larger star at the tip of Cephas. So the House of Cephas sits just there. The Greater Esley marking is the larger path, according to his book on page 43. The tip of Cephas, which is not quite exactly on the path of the precession of the pole star, but it's nearby. There are many stones in that area. This is me interjecting here. There are many stones in that area that depict the same story. The smaller, lesser Esley is on that exact path. So it's not the greater one that's the important Esley stone circle, which is just south of sort of Aberdeenshire, down that end. So it's just south down there, but it's not the Greater Esley that's important. That is the path of Polaris, but it's the lesser Esley, which is exactly the path. The Scottish term Esley is surely related to the Latvian Yuslav, Justa, meaning zone, band, belt, of procession. So he's saying here it's the belt of procession. Now there's notes on the bottom of that. I'll put pictures of this reading from the book. I'll take pictures and put them onto this as well, and that will help. So on page 44, the following page of Andis Kaulins' book, he says here, our drawings show all the Neolithic sites marked on the Ordnance Survey map of ancient Britain and show how these represent the stars above. So Elgin, which is in the north of Aberdeen Shire, Elgin, quite a large city, it has a cathedral. Quarrywood is the star Vega. Alpha Lyra, also Lyra, the harp. In Lyra, this star was called Dilgan, the messenger of light. In Babylonian astronomy, whence perhaps it came from, the word Dilgan is where we get the word Elgin, as he says here in this book, de Elgan, de Elgin, Delgan. Memsey near Fraserburgh, which is another burial mound further up. This is my interjection again, knowing the area. I grew up in that area, so Memsey near Fraserburgh is the star system, the Arabic star system, Faras, which equals the Gamma Cygnus constellation, because Cygnus is a large house, obviously, and it moves around. Perhaps related to the Hebrew Tishemath. And this is interesting, this is really good because I have a background in the Hebrew, and in the Arabic, Herazim. So I understand what these words relate to, and I understand that it was to do with birds, swans, Tishmach, is the offerings, Yom Kippur. This is all tied to the Yom Kippur. It's probably in the Arabic and the Islamic faith, it's probably all tied to the festival of Eid or something like that, because Eid is Eden, the Garden of Eden, Eid, and it's the same, the Garden of Eden, in what's been known as the Hebrew or the Jewish. So what the next part, sorry, this is me rambling on. The next part, I'm putting these pictures in so you can, photos of this, and you can read it as well. But I'm interjecting what I know. This is how I have learned by studying the heavens and understanding these signs. But here, this book, which I've just not long received, it's a treasure trove. And it's helped me so much. The maps, some of the maps I did have access to online. I can't find his website anymore, but I have now got this book, and I am glad of the purchase, and I would intend to get any more of his books, and I do intend to, and I would suggest that anybody else who has an interest in these things, which they should get this book, because this book is one of the greatest parts to help solve the puzzle. So, making noises again with my speaker. I shall pause it. It seems to work. I shall pause it and continue, because I'm going to read the rest of this chapter of this book, and then we will continue looking at the stones, and I will give my explanation of the stones in accordance with what I have just given you from this book. Okay. So interference with the speaker again, but anyway, we'll try again and see. So we're looking at Tiamat and Apsu, which is the ancient Babylonian, and if you've read Combs Beaumont's book, that wasn't Combs Beaumont's book, but if you know of Combs Beaumont books, he talks about the Tiamat, the Apsu, and other things like that. And there are other authors out there who speak about it, but they're on the stones. And this book, which I am reading, which is Andis Kaulins, we got as far as Stricken, and Memsey, I think we got as far as. So I was talking about Memsey near Fraserburgh, and Stricken. So Stricken is somewhere that I mapped many years ago, and Stricken itself is shaped like a swan. The whole village, the original village, is shaped like a swan, and it's because that's the story in the heavens, as above so below. Just as Hercules is all over Fortrose and Tain and Corner Bridge and Bonar Bridge? Sorry, Bonar Bridge. The whole coastline of Britain. Somebody left a comment on my YouTube earlier, and I said no, they were Americans. Said everything's over America, and I said no, everything's over the tree, and the tree is here, and it's projected everywhere else. I have videos from years ago showing all the different cities all over the world. Moscow, I have Syria, Damascus, and they're all, the geometry set up everywhere according to the heavens, because I've had an interest in the heavens and the standing stones for a long time. But I've done many videos and spoke a lot about elsewhere, and then it brought me back here to the British Isles. I even put on the religious garb and became a Christian minister, a youth minister, and then also I became a Jewish rabbinic intern, where I learned for 11 years Judaism, basically, within a Messianic Jewish sort of construct. It's construct because it's all construct. But yeah, it took me a journey to bring me back here. So what we're actually looking at is Stricken. And Stricken itself, many years ago I discovered that Stricken is shaped like a swan. And the whole land of Britain, as I've just said, is shaped in the shape of the constellations above. There is a lot more land now because water has been drained away. But I mean, I have got friends who will look at Google Maps and stuff, and they'll say, "Oh, look at that! It looks like a bear, and that looks like..." And there are animals and creatures carved out on the earth. But I'm not going to go down that route. What I want to talk about is the Loudon Wood and the Cairn Cattle near Peterhead is Lacerta. Marienburg and Lagmore are the head of Draco. The two large stars on the head of Draco are Gamma Draconis and Beta Draconis. We find these two locations in Scotland at the Bridge of Avon, the Bridge of Heaven. I'll read that again, the Bridge of Avon, the Bridge of Heaven, for Draco is at Heaven's centre. Did you hear that? That's the bit I really wanted to read. And somebody did ask me a long time ago about Avon, Aviemore. Yes, Aviemore. It's actually written in this book somewhere as well. We'll get to that at some point. But the word Avon, Avesbury, means heaven. Avi means heaven. So he says in this book, Andis Kaulins, Marienburg and Lagmore are the head of Draco. So here's Draco here on this image here. We've got Draco there, and we have Draco there, and there's the two, Tiamat and Apsu, which is Draco, and Tiamat, which is Hydra. So the two large stars at the head of Draco are Gamma Draconis and Beta Draconis. We find these two locations in Scotland at the Bridge of Avon, the Bridge of Heaven, and Avon is up sort of Aberfeldy in the middle there, and the reason why is because the Draco snakes around down towards Dundee, around Andromeda and back up again, and it circles around in an anti-clockwise direction, following or being chased by the bear, and trying to chase the little bear around the poster. And this is the Hydra, of course, here with the single head. But back to the book. The Bridge of Avon for Draco is Heaven's centre. Draco is the Heaven's centre. You see, Draco spirals around, and this is Tiamat and Apsu, the two primordials, the face of the deep. The Bible in Genesis 1 tells us that there was a darkness and a swirling of the spirit upon the face of the deep, and the Almighty Creator separated the waters above and the waters below. Well, this is the story of Tiamat and Apsu, and this is the beast that came out from the sea, the Leviathan, which the book of Job speaks about. But this picture down here is showing a catastrophe which happened, and this is the casting down or the coming down of the Helios, the chariot, the Pantheon, or Phaeton, driving the chariot, and the splitting of the atom, and the duality and the twins and all that is very important, because it seems to be a theme all the way through the story of the gods. So Tom the Very, Gamma, Ursa Minor, Arabic, Farkadine. Perhaps there is an ancient relation between Very, like the word Tom Nat, a Very. Well, I know it's heaven, and Farka. The blue cairn at Beta Ursa Minor. The blue cairn is near Aboyne. This Aboyne may have the same original meaning as the Boyne in Ireland, or the Avon in England, i.e. the word heaven, 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 haven. The blue cairn is not blue, but rather it may be the blue as in the word Pulu, Balu, Palu, Balu star, Polestar, which Beta Ursa Minor was around at 750 BC, when the deep pit or heaven's centre, was perhaps dug into the cairn itself, which is known as the Blue Cairn down by Aboyne. So Bacarn Polaris, our current pole star, is in Ursa Minor, which I've already showed. The Spanish Bocina, Bugle, Italian Bogena, and the German Bucher. Perhaps the ancient reading Rukaba, which is a Hebrew word, or Rukaba, was backwards. So you said backwards Bukar, and backwards is Rukaba, take away the N. Glassell, or Torfins, is Delta Ursa Minor, and Glassell is just a little place outside. 5 stones in the shape of Cephas make up the Glassell because it sits at the bottom of the Tor, the bottom of the circle, the Torfins. 5 stars in this part of the sky were known as the ancient Salutaurus, Circe Taurus, the dancers around the North Celestial Pole, and he's just got around the ancient pole. But it's beautiful, huh? So Radix is Cassiopeia, may bear a relation to the Sumerian word Eridug. We have found that Eridug in the Sumerian temple hymns has an original meaning of Arata, Dargar Darza, which is the meaning of the ploughed garden. Remember, you've got the plough Ursa Major there, also seen as the boar, the wild boar, the beast, also the hunt of, to the Greeks it was the Artemis, and I'm going to talk about Artemis in a moment, because Artemis and Demeter were seen as the one who wore the crown, the crescent moon crown. And I will scoot back on this video just quickly, because what we're seeing here is, just to remind me, where are you? There it's right there, the crown. Or the crescent moon. Now, people who are the scholars, the scholars who are out there are hiding things from us, because it's quite obvious what this is here. This crescent moon is always just Z rod bar or V rod bar, but crescent moon. The crescent moon represents Ursa Major. Ursa Major or Artemis or Demeter was represented as the bear, and she had, or the boar, or the one of the wild hunt. And this is why you have down here you've got a bird which represents the hawk of Horus and such. These are over the house, near the house of Cephas, and this here is the area known as Ursa Major, and this is the land of Canaan. And there's a stag here because this is the tree of heaven, and the great hunt of, not Orion, but the great hunt of Artemis, or the great hunt of Demeter, or the great hunt of the bear, the bull, the boar. The Egyptians believed it was a bull's leg, but this is the centre of heaven, and this is the great hunt. When Washington, a few years ago, when Trump was president, and is again, but when Trump was president, some dude broke into the White House and dressed up as the great hunt. Well, that represents Artemis, so that represented the centre of heaven. They were basically taking the piss. As I've read in this book, and as you can see, heave, aboin, aven means stone in Hebrew, and avenu, our father. It means our father in Hebrew. So the word av, and it also means ben, aven, ab, a, v and b are interchangeable, and this is where the rod comes in and the lightning bolt, because these are vowels, I would say. There are lightning bolts, these are, but what happened is the closest conclusion that they get to over the crescent moon is it was a period of time when something happened, and this is a marking, and they're kind of correct, but this is the sun splitting into, and we can actually see exactly when it split and when it hit, because this is just some of the standing stones, but all the standing stones all over the UK, the world, actually, they have different forms of telling the story, but they all tell the same story. And what we're looking at here is Arthur the Great Bear, Artemis, Art, and this is a symbol for Diana, and also Diana was a Roman goddess, but Diana is also the symbol for Artemis, Demeter, and she wore the crescent moon upon her head. So this is Arthur the Great Bear, the boar. The Greeks and the Thracians and other people, the Akkadians and that, Babylonians, Sumerians, those from the Sumer Isles, they had variations of the story. Some seen it as a bear, some seen it as a boar, some seen it as a wild hunter, some seen it, but it was always to do with the hunt and wild creatures. And yeah, the boar. Look up the boar, the word boar, it's the word Sioux, and in Aberdeenshire they call pigs Sioux. So the Sioux, the pig, there's some connection to Zeus there, but I'll go back to that in a later recording, not just now. But that's a little tidbit for you. The word Zeus means pig, and the wild boar represents what we understand as Artemis, Demeter, who Zeus put in the heavens. So there's a deep connection there. Was one of the offspring of the Nephilim, of the Tiamat and the Apsu, or the gods, was one of those wild creatures, a wild boar, who were put up in the heavens to, or the bear, the bar, to hold the line. And these are one of the ones that broke ranks. But what we're looking at here is the symbol or sign which the Greek people used, and this is who the Picts are, the Greeks, Akkadians, Sumerians. They used this symbol for Artemis or for Ursa Major. And with the help of this book, Stars, Stones and Skulls, The Decipherment of the Megaliths by Andis Kaulins, has helped me on the journey, which had been a 30-40 years journey, piecing this together. But right on this shield here, and I'll stop it because we're getting 30 minutes and people get tired after that, and we'll jump in with a continuation of a breakdown of more parts of the stones as we go on. But I wanted to make use of this video rather than just waste it and not speak through it. Speaking is how the word is penetrated into our ears. But what we're looking at here in this crescent is not just a crescent moon. We are seeing the lightning bolt of Zeus, and it's an electrical force coming down. You can see this straight line on this side, and there would have been one on that side too. But this straight line is a marking of days. You can see the angles, and these are a counting of days. That's the counting of days. And that happened here in Aries, the disaster hut. Unfortunately the stone is broken, but cracked, but they put it together. But here you can see that this is Draco. The Draco, the head is at Fort George, and Ursa Major. Ursa Major sits from Fort George, which is the Pictish fort. There's a Pictish temple just above Inverness, and that's the Ark of Heaven here, which is represented by the bear or the boar. And this was Artemis' symbol. She had on her head a crown with a crescent moon. And what we're seeing in here is Artemis, which is the measurement of time, the boar, the great bear. It still is the measurement of time because it sits alongside the pole star and the circle of heaven. And what we're seeing here is the symbol for Aries. So a disaster happened at the beginning of Aries. In the first quarter of Aries, something hit Draco. And on the continuation of the stones, we'll just scoot through this now. There will be other parts of this book I'll read, because we are getting on a bit. But in the other parts of the stone, you see that it continued on, this disaster, this lightning bolt, which split the sun, which I believe is probably Sirius and our present day sun. It's split, and that story is told as Helios or Hyperion or Hyperion, or Photon or Phaeton took his dad's chariot, and that would be Sirius. He would be Sirius, Photon, Phaeton, and he took his dad's chariot and crashed it, took the horses and crashed it into the Eridanus, and the Eridanus is actually below. There we go again. I'll pause it again because I'll finish this last moment. Yeah, the Eridanus sits down at the borders of Scotland, but this here is the Vanity Mirror of Cassiopeia, which is where the disaster struck between Draco and Cassiopeia in this North Celestial Pole, which is mentioned in this book and mentioned by our ancestors with all the cairns and stones. So we can see when the disaster actually struck in a calendar, at what time on the vernal equinox we were actually going into, as you can see by this one here. Not just this one, as many. This is a symbol of the ram, the Aries, and this is the two birds. These were seen as the birds, the two birds that guarded Eden by the Egyptians, two Horuses, two eagles, sort of thing. And that's where the Zeus thing comes into. It's the birds of Zeus. But in the centre you've got the three arches of heaven, and in the centre is Aries, where it struck within Arthur the Great Bear, and the circle's right there. But Polaris sits down here separated by, and that's what this symbol would represent down here in this corner. It's below ground, but that's what this is. This is the centre of heaven. It struck just short of the centre of heaven and created the disaster that we know as the flood of Noah, or the Atlantean flood, destruction of Atlantis. So I hope this helps, and I will put lots of little clips in for the book, and get the book if you can.